I saw a post the other day that said, it doesn't matter what you accomplish in this world. It doesn't matter what you do or don't do or what you accomplish. Just be human, just be human. And, that's all we need to do is embrace our humanness. I'm thinking to myself, what a load of shit. What a load of shit that is. I mean, you see how it tries to disguise itself as this fucking spiritual thing?
Mm.
And I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm going, what in the hell kind of drive and motivation and absolute uh power base in your lives are you denying with this type of mindset? Are you not allowing that part of your ego construct to come online with that type of mindset? And this is why that new age bullshit continues to drive the narrative to that psyop, that whole psyop that's going on with what we were talking about earlier, the whole 8-8 thing and all that. I mean, it's just another thing they bring in every year. It's just like Easter or Christmas.
It's a new age version of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically, we're going through a portal, man. Yeah.
exactly. Let's just do everything we can to escape this reality.
Mm.
Because I've even seen posts, hey man, we're smashing it, we're winning, we're making a huge difference on this planet. I'm thinking to myself, we haven't even started yet.
Mm.
We haven't
Mm.
even we haven't even drove the narrative to coming together yet.
We're
On
still working through our
on a
shadow shit.
multi-dimensional level, the dark ones are much more organized than we are.
Mm. Many steps ahead strategically. Yeah.
In
Way more
context, yeah,
organized.
in context to actual
Yeah.
affecting the reality field with magic.
Mm. Yeah.
And
At the
this
moment,
is, yeah,
yeah,
and this is the Plutonian
not
energy in
many.
context to the power. See? And so what are we doing? See, that's where you got to watch where Pluto goes. I mean, what is it aspecting in your chart? What is it, are you having a square with your moon and Pluto? Are they squaring off during this period of time? Because that's a very long transit, especially with your moon energies. It's very powerful. So
Yeah.
these squares or these trines or sextiles that happen in context to the angles of the angels, the messengers, right? The messages that come through those angles, in context to your lessons, your choices, your karmic aspects, what you're actually resolving in your life, and the biospiritual regenesis that you're driving the narrative in your mind's eye and in your heart core to a higher space of not only consciousness, but authority. And that
Exactly.
authority comes from your own individual knowing who you are.
And that's
That's
a
where it has.
process.
That's where it comes from.
Mm.
So
Yeah, and utilizing that Plutonian energy in the best way possible, because it can be quite a malefic energy. It can be about destruction and death, decay, going into the underworld. So yeah, how do we utilize that in a way that's actually going to assist us in that process of biospiritual regenesis instead of debilitate us? So yeah, for example,
right.
having Pluto in my ascendant, it's a deep thing. It's
That's
like
deep.
transform
Exactly. Yeah.
or die, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Scorpio ascendants
it's
have a, they have come to go through the death and rebirth cycles,
mm-hmm.
or any type of eighth house energy you may have on your sun or your moon, or any or your pillars in context to, or if you have eighth house in actual Pluto and you are still in denial of your transformative abilities and what you're actually able to accomplish, you're going to get drug into the underworld, kicking and screaming, probably.
Yeah.
But what
Whether you like it.
Pluto can't transform here, right? Scorpio will transform in the underworld one way or another. Everybody's got to come the same way.
Exactly. Yeah. And right now we've got Pluto at the last degree in Capricorn. So yeah, that anaretic degree,
Oh
it's,
yeah, man.
really amplifying everything right now. Yeah, with these
Driving the
retrograde.
narrative, man. Driving the
Mm.
narrative, and it's in retrograde. So it's all doing internal work. And what is it doing? It's T-squaring the nodals that just moved into Aries and Libra. Aries North Node, North Star, South Star being Libra. So we've had a major shift now into much more intense energies. You know, because we're talking about the axis now. We're talking about we are literally on the 1-7 axis. This is the shaman's cross. This is the grand cross that we are dealing with now in context to the 1st and 7th houses on the nodals. So with that movement into Aries and Libra, Pluto was on it with that T-square, amplifying that energy to transformation. So by saying that, I want to ask you a question. Since this nodal axis has moved into Aries, into the south node of Libra, how have you personally, what synchronicities, what experiences have you observed in your awareness that have drove the narrative to actually see this change happening, not only on a collective level, but on your personal level?
Yeah, so personally, natally, I actually have that access. My North Node is in Aries and my South Node Libra. So I definitely am feeling those energies. Yeah, I think it's stepping up into our warrior energy with that Aries North Node. And it's also the place we're not the most comfortable, you know, it's really pushing us to, yeah, empower ourselves and warrior up. Yeah, so in terms of that Aries energy, it's, yeah, really stepping into our warrior self. Yeah, Aries is, you know, the 1st house in modern astrology. So it could be embarking on a new beginning with our destiny and where we're heading as well. Like, yeah, having to shift our trajectory a little bit. All these retrogrades as well, reassessing things. Yeah, it's definitely bringing that momentum and drive in. But yeah, I think Aries can be a bit impulsive and headstrong, and you know, it is ruled by Mars. So yeah, it's quite intense. As I have that natally, that aspect, it's actually the energy I'm probably the most uncomfortable with, I feel, as my North Node. It's something that I need to become more familiar with. I need to fucking step up and be a warrior and have that courage. And that's been the biggest challenge for me personally. So maybe that energy will be coming in more so for everybody with this transit and coming from that south nodal axis of Libra, which is, you know, Venusian. It's about the balance, you know, it's about finding that inner harmony and you know, those scales of Mars and that whole kind of energy around that. So it's coming from this Venusian energy into this full-on Martian energy. So yeah, it's quite an interesting practice.
Yeah, it's a big shift. I mean, you could feel like this you know, like this slide into it. Like it's just like whoosh. And because the Plutonian energy was squaring off with it. So it's amplifying everything. You know, I've had so many experiences with, you know, past things coming up now. And I've even seen it on the collective level, looking back 18 years, you know, every 9 years or so, but 18, you know, years, 27 years, 36 years when this happened. And like things are coming up now in context to that. I mean, even looking at this movie called, I went and saw this movie called Oppenheimer, where they were trying to, you know, recreate the whole idea of how, you know, they built the atom bomb, right? So we'll bring that narrative in, you know, so we're dealing with what? The Libra South Node with the Plutonian energy in context through the relationships and how that came to pass. I mean, that whole movie is that connection. And so it's no wonder that, you know, came out at the nodal axis, you know, when things are shifting. When you start to look even at the synchronicities and stuff that's taking place with with, you know, high level, you know, stuff that's happening that, you know, is like bringing this awareness, this sharpness, this almost like arrow point to our consciousness where we're at the moment. And that's what we have to hone. You know, that becomes the warrior, right? Tier, you know, Mars, Tiwaz, Tuesday. You know, it becomes the warrior aspect that we have to embrace here that we may be uncomfortable with as a collective consciousness. Because your North Star is where you're the most uncomfortable, where you're the most unfamiliar with your life, with your soul's journey. And so, my North Node's in
Absolutely.
Cancer. So it's
Yeah.
it's learning how to understand and embrace that Cancerian energy. My moon, Pisces, see, get that, embracing that energy, learning how to work with it, learning how to bring it into your templating and a high level and activate that shit. And this is why you can't just say, oh, well, I'm going to go to an astrologer. A regular astrologer ain't going to tell you shit. Not really. You need someone who actually is driving the narrative to the alchemical process on the solar spiral of creation. You are a conglomeration of your whole soul's journey.
Yeah.
This is just a very small
Multidimensional.
part of it in this incarnation.
And especially as you mentioned, say, for example, Mars, Tia, looking at these planetary archetypes and the archetypes within ourselves being extensions of our consciousness. And yeah, looking at the mythos and how all of this kind of ties in.
Yes.
All different cultural mythos, you can look at all the correlations here. You were just talking about synchronicity and asking me about that. I did have a really interesting synchronicity around Mercury.
Okay.
So just as Mercury went 0 degrees into Virgo, I was talking to a friend firstly about Freya and Odin and how Freya taught Odin Cedar and that whole dynamic between the Aesir and the Vanir. And then I opened up a book I've just finished reading called Venus in Virgo by Michael Suter. And I get to the second last chapter and it starts talking about that. And then it starts talking about how Hermes, Mercury, also can be Odin. There's that dynamic, the archetypes.
It is the ancestral energy. Yes.
And you've got this, Venusian energy, which could be looked at as Freya as well, or Aphrodite.
Yes.
But Hermes as a planet in traditional astrology is able to move between the day and the night.
Yes.
He's able to kind of comfortably traverse both those realms. So he's like this messenger, like between the gods and the humans. And, you look at that whole Hermes in the mythos and stuff like that. And Michael was saying how Hermes and Venus, their child is the hermaphrodite in the alchemical sense. So not this trans stuff, but an actual hermaphrodite in terms of planetary alchemy. And I just finished reading this and it takes me back to a dream I'd had 2 nights before, which I completely dismissed as crazy. And it was a dream where I was in this room with a whole heap of people and we're all looking at this hermaphrodite who was stark naked. It looked like a man, but it had both bits. And at the time, after I had the dream, I kind of went, why am I dreaming about hermaphrodites? So I've completely lost the plot. But then literally 2 days later, after this conversation about Odin and Freya, opening up this book, I start reading about a hermaphrodite. So random, divine synchronicity, really. So, and then I look at where Mercury is and it's just gone 0 degrees into Virgo, which is actually in traditional astrology, it's exalted and domicile. So it's in its ruler, but it also loves to be in Virgo because it's kind of like grounding in that mercurial energy into reality because Virgo is that earth sign. So, you can really get some substance with it. So yeah, I found that really fascinating. And then I felt really compelled to write and a lot of creativity came from that. So yeah, and a lot more like interwoven synchronicity around that dynamic of the Venusian and the Virgo, and the Venus kind of energy and the Mars energy, sorry. So yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because we will be getting a retrograde in Virgo as well.
Yes, that's coming up. I think I'm already feeling the shadow vibe of that.
Yeah, I mean, you can
the shadow period.
This is going to be a very powerful retrograde in context to messengers, and your lineage, your ancestral energy that's going to be coming up. So we're really, especially sitting in Virgo, which is what, it's the Virgin, man. In context to, what, clearing out all this Metatronic, all this bullshit that's in our, in our templating, that's in our mind, that's in our, it's over, that we've been overlaid with, becoming that pure innocence, that pure Virgonian energy in context to our consciousness and drive. This is why they lock it down there. This is where the pharmakia and all that comes in context to, the big machine and driving the narrative to the alchemical process on a physical level with us as humans and the womb man, see? And so it's driving the narrative to keep us locked down because they know that the key is physical as well. It's not just a spiritual journey. You have to embrace your physical makeup and who you are here and now. That's sixth house. That's the house of health.
Exactly.
So this is where it gets locked down from to the pharmakia aspect, and that's where we have to understand that there's more here to transcend than just your spiritual journey. It has to happen on a physical level as well. You want to address that context of Mercury and Virgo?
I'm just thinking of pharmakia and how they actually use the wand of Hermes as
yes.
their symbol,
yep.
which is a wand of actual commerce and trade. So the true wand of medicine is the wand of Asclepius, which is one snake going around the staff, while we've got the Hermes wand. So it's very interesting that pharmakia doesn't even use the actual wand of healing. So yeah, that's just something I've observed and thought was quite interesting that they're going with that Hermes energy instead, because that's what it's all about. It's about trade. It's about communication, about money.
If you want to talk about the snake on the wand, that is the serpent of wisdom that's been hijacked in context. Asclepius, right? This gets into the actual 13th gate. It gets into the actual Ophiuchus energy that was actually taught by Chiron. See? So Chiron not only taught Jupiter, Chiron also taught Asclepius in context, see? And so when you start to realize that this path is really so ancient to what we're experiencing here and now, in context to what's coming up for review, what's coming up in the reality field, how are we actually going to deal with this as a human race if we continue to step into the places of escapism and letting them drive the narrative, to the hijacking of the reality field itself with all this bullshit, the circus that's going on out there. Mercury in context is, very fast moving. It's not combustible. Even if it's next to the sun, it's uncombustible. It's driving the narrative to the heat, the everyday heat that we have trying to survive the weight of this distortion. And so the weight of this distortion becomes too much for people to handle. It becomes too heavy for people to handle or for people to deal with, right? Because it puts them into a position where they have to what? They actually have to look and take responsibility for where they are at in their lives. And that is an ongoing process, in context of Mercury and Virgo, if you want to really look at it, to protocol and what you're actually putting into protocol into your life through that particular energy.
And there's a big emphasis with Virgo around physical health as well, and Mercury being communication. So maybe people getting more information and reassessing about their health and what's actually real and what's not. They may have been fed some disinformation about their health. A lot of that's been going on over the last few years. So individuals may have to reassess that and reflect on maybe what they've done in the past because of the retrograde, and just okay, maybe I need to change my views around this. Maybe I need to study new information around how I care for my physical vessel and that gnosis that comes with that. So this could be a big part of it too.
If you're not willing to change when new information comes into your coffers, then what are you doing? You're you're living in cognitive dissonance. You're in a box. The narrative that has to be driven here is when that information comes, when that knowledge, that knowing comes and you experience it, because you're making the choice to that knowledge, that Hermetical, that Mercurian knowledge, right? What happens? Then you're able really then to transcend the version of who you are or who you were and create a new version of yourself that is more powerful, more focused, and has more intent, more purpose. And that's what this Mercury and Virgo retrograde is going to be all about this year, because we have to prepare for what's coming. You think this is it? This is it? This ain't it. We got shit coming up that we got to get ready for on a subconscious level. And this retrograde is going to prepare us for that. Mercury and Virgo. Get ready.
Big one. Yeah.
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 It's going to be it's going to be a piece of the preparation. You know, because we're talking planetary alchemy here. We're talking high planetary magic in context of the ascension process. We're not just talking about, hey man, you know, your career should be this, you know, or you can pick from this or that, all kind of the same vein with your career, man. You know, it's all good. But again, man, this is all about what? Transforming your consciousness.
This could be a taste of that Pluto in Aquarius coming up, you know, that energy of there's still a lot of deception around that with the Uranian Saturn ruled kind of Aquarius. Unpredictable experiences, and we don't know what they're going to do with this, you know. I can't imagine it's going to be a good thing.
The Pluto and Aquarius, what is that actually going to unveil or bring out what's been hidden, right? I mean, there are people in such denial of what's happening right now and they're so blinded by it that they don't have a clue whether they are even coming or going in a reality, because reality has dictated their mind for so long that the Aquarian energy is all about what? Independence, individuality, freedom, you know,
breaking apart the paradigm,
breaking apart the reality of and the paradigm of things, you know, of where you're at, you know, breaking it up. And so that Aquarian energy becomes very strong because it deals with what? It's dealing with your programming. See, it's sitting the lightning strike to it, so to speak. You know, and that's what has to happen to break up that fallow ground, that ground that's been solidified by the actual thirst, the actual lack of water to the earth itself. To, you know what I'm saying? There's no fluidity in your consciousness. You've got no water running through your consciousness because it's so dry, you know?
Stagnant. Big shift. But also with that, you know, we could be looking at, you know, we've got this AI timeline accelerating, you know, false ET, all this crazy shit going on. So I guess it's making the most of that Uranian kind of Saturn energy. Because I still look at, you know, Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn. So we've still got that thread, you know, and maybe that's more stepping up with our own discipline and you know, who we are as individuals and as, you know, magicians in this world, you know, incorporating our own magic here and actually being mavericks with it, being confident to kind of pave our own path forward instead of going with the old paradigm of domination and control, which that last Pluto transit was a lot about. It really emphasized that energy, as we saw with the last few degrees. We've had everything that's gone on over the last few years. So it's exciting to feel that.
If you think about what's going to happen here, talking about Saturn and Aquarius, when Pluto moves into Aquarius, it's going to test the foundations that Saturn has made the last 9 cycles.
Yeah.
That it's ran through the Aquarian gate. See? So what's going to happen? Pluto, with its 248-year transit is finally moving back into Aquarius again at the end of the year. And it's going to test all of the structures that have been laid in those 248 years that Saturn has laid moving through that gate, all the foundations and structures of that buildings. This is why we're going to see major transformation. If things go in a very dark way, we will not know this world by 2030. We will look around and we'll say, what happened to 2023? Seriously.
Exactly.
It's like the frog in the water pot, man. And so that's why we have to realize that this is the 11th gate that we're dealing with now. This is the age of Aquarius that is marking its boundaries and territories, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of people can they can contradict that and say I'm full of shit, and that's fine. But again, where Pluto goes, transformation happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter whether we are or not. Where that gate sits with the Plutonian energy in context to the next generation, this is what we're dealing with. And this is the foundations that need to start to be laid in context to consciousness itself by the mages. That's why Aquarian energy also deals with what? Groups and people coming together.
The network.
Exactly.
Uniting that.
Yeah.
And that, lightning, thunderbolt energy as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That electric spark coming through us.
Yes.
The only way we're going to get through this, like you said, about being like a frog in a pot, we're going to boil to death if we don't get that spark and we don't rise up and become mavericks setting our own path. Because, the old paradigm, if we continue to stay in that, it's not going to be good. So as we know, it's a dead end paradigm.
Well, that's what we're purging. That's the process that we're going through, that we're purging that timeline. We're purging that actual evil out of our system. That's why Virgo is so powerful. It's the innocence. It's the virgin of consciousness. And when we look at it in context of how it's been hijacked, to the actual process of consciousness itself and what's actually wielding here in the reality field, we see why they picked that point as the cause point for the lockdown. See?
Exactly.
Because when you transcend that into the seventh house or the seventh gate, right, then you're actually stepping into a place of balance. And without balance and understanding how you work the positive, negative charge within your own consciousness and your own internal dialogue and what's happening, between the temples or in the temples, right? Here, that you are never going to have an impact outside of yourself in context of being the true lightning bolt, the true cause point of your existence. Let me tell you, when lightning strikes next to you, even a couple blocks, you can feel that electricity as it runs through the ethers. That's how we need to be as mages. We need to come to that point where we are literally becoming the lightning strike or the lightning itself in context to what? Being the cause point of reality to change this shit. Actually anchoring in the power of our ancient past. See? In context to the ancestral energy, and even beyond that, to what's all beyond all this shit here. Exactly. And that's where we have to be as mages. We have to have that type of tenacity, and that type of drive and liberation within ourselves and freedom within ourselves to become, like you said, that maverick. I'm not talking about a rebellious asshole. I'm talking about a maverick, a maven, someone who is actually a cause changer to the causality field, Yeah.
Create ripples, out into the reality field and shift things for real. And inspire others to take their own lead as well. and become their own way showers in this way. Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of power in that Mercury Virgo transit this time.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a big one.
I think we really covered that well.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, also just looking at the nervous system, you know, with Mercury as well, and, you know, how we can work with that.
Oh, yeah.
Healing.
Right.
Big one. Yeah, I've been looking a lot.
So being being an alchemist, what would you suggest in context to for the physical body, for the nervous system during this period where Virgo is moving, you know, Mercury's moving through Virgo, for an actual taking something to the alchemical process on a physical level that would, you know, complement the spiritual aspect of what's going to be going on?
A really good one is trauma release therapy. I know there's a few people in network that do this, and I've done it a few times and I find it really effective. So you're actually shaking the body to somatically release trauma. Also, yeah, just working with anything that involves breath and movement, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, you know, keeping that physical body and the parasympathetic nervous system able to kind of activate through that process. Yeah, what else? Like meditation, anything like this, anything that just involves the physical body, the breath, calming the nervous system. Yeah, all of that I'd highly recommend right now. Yeah.
What would you take
All
on
the time,
a
really.
on an actual physical level as far as say herbs or some type of practice where you would ingest something here that would actually help with the process to your physical body?
Yeah, good calming herbs, valerian, chamomile. That's the word I was looking for. What else we got? Blue lotus is a really good one. Yeah. There's just looking at more like sedative herbs that are going to just help calm things, because it can be a very overly stimulated time, I think, with this energy. So yeah, and nootropics as well, just working with the brain.
There's a lot of things out there that we can work with to, you know, take the advantage of this opportunity here that we have with this retrograde. You know, so many people look at Mercury retrograde as being, you know, oh, it's, you know, it's very difficult to get through, you know, but you got to embrace the process with the correct state of mind. And if you can do that, then you're going to take advantage of the actual chemical process that it's going to create. You know, there's a lot of people out there, oh, I'm just beyond all that. You know, I'm from here, I'm from there, I'm Pleiadian, I'm, you know, Arcturian, I'm all the, you know, and they get into all that stuff, and they just bypass the actual power of the solar spiral. You know, the solar spiral is directly affecting everything on this planet.
Exactly.
And every one of us have planetary aspects that are more influential than in our lives because of our ascendant and where our ascendant is placed. So you literally become, you know, that planet. You come to integrate that energy into the reality field and work with it. You know, you have to understand that energy is your signifier. It's what you have come to work with in context to, not totally, but as a major portion of your soul's journey and your incarnation here. You know, because that's what your rising sign is. That's what is being brought into your templating in context to what's being magnified and amplified to your actual process of leveling up your consciousness. So this is where you need to go. And then if you take that and you bring it into the space where you are realizing that it's your ascendant, and then if you look at your Chiron and your North Star, and you see those points, those navigation points to where you need to navigate your consciousness to for healing and for consciousness expansion, then you've got something working. And then the other inner workings of all the other planetary aspects become the other parts of the puzzle that weave the tapestry to achieving those, you know, those incarnation goals that you set for yourself, to the Chiron aspect, to the North Star aspect or North Node, driving the narrative to your ascending or your ascendant sign.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't ever hear anybody talking about this. But to me,
Hmm.
those are the reference points to your templating on the solar spiral.
Yeah. And learning to work with it to your best ability, even the more detrimental aspects. It's utilizing that Saturn energy, having Saturn in the first house, and having a very heavy Saturn influence in my life. Yeah, it's how do you navigate that? You're going through your Saturn return as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can either like swallow you completely into the abyss if you don't work with it in the right way, or it can be a wonderful tool to enable that discipline and inner growth to actually happen. Yeah, so it's really using these planetary templates to our best advantage, which takes a lot of planetary alchemy, as you said, because you can have a really afflicted chart where all your planets are like detriment and fall and
Yeah.
really hard placements. And I've been looking at
Born
charts like
under
this
a
recently.
bad sign, man.
Yeah, exactly. But I find that's also where the gold is if you do the work. Someone that's got all these planets in dignitary, which, they've got like everything's really good. Sometimes they can just have really boring, comfortable lives and nothing much actually happens for them, because their chart's just so perfect. Everything's trining and everything's, in the right place. And they'll just live the most wholesome, normal life and not actually ever shift or transform. They actually become quite boring sometimes. So if you're looking at your chart and you're going, holy moly, I've got Mars in Taurus, which is really difficult, and I've got, Moon in Scorpio, and all these type of aspects that are considered, detriment or fall or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed the people that have those type of aspects often, have to work harder, but they actually can end up achieving more sometimes because
Yeah.
of that tension
Yeah.
being pressed against that. It actually, if you enable it, you can really become the alchemist there. And yeah, that challenge is what makes us really.
It's
It's that alchemical process. Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
great point to embrace, the challenges of your chart. You can resolve those challenges, right? You can resolve them. Then that square then becomes something that is your strength, it's your power base now,
Exactly.
or that opposition. If you've learned how to find the seventh house, that
Mm.
opposition then becomes powerful because now you've learned how to work. I have Saturn and Uranus in opposition. So now I've learned how to work with Saturn and Uranus in balance within that opposition, not only to the boundary aspect and foundations, but also to finding my freedom and free will and voice and becoming the actual lightning itself, the lightning strike. So, you're trying to balance these two energies that are actually very opposite of each other in context, right? But you're being able to work with both of them now that you've actually taken that aspect and brought it into a place where you are mastering it. You're becoming a master of how to work with those energies in balance itself.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
how you work
And
with an opposition,
mm-hmm. Yeah. Harmonize the polarity. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And that can be challenging, but yeah, you can really get a lot of rewards from that. Yeah. Yeah.
You're right.
And what's your thoughts about like retrograde energy in general? Because like I see it more as a point to reflect, we're reassessing and reflecting with these retrogrades. So yeah, in general, what do you think about the retrogrades?
It's your internal work. When a planet goes into its retrograde period, in context to what that planet energy is, and then you have to look and see what it's transiting in context to your natal chart. Then you can look and you can actually see where it is that internally on an internal going within internal dialogue where you're going to be challenged. See, where things are going to challenge your life. And so then you understand that the challenge is before you during that retrograde period, and you can understand what it's transiting in context to that challenge. Then that sets you up because you've already got the information. See, you're not just blindly running through whatever's retrograding, saying, oh, it doesn't matter, man, I'm just being human. It's just my humanness I'm trying to embrace.
Bypassing.
Yeah, whatever's going to happen, man, you know, it's all good, you know, that kind of shit, right? So you're going to embrace that challenge and context. This is why you need to know your transits, because then you can embrace the challenge of what you're going to be challenged with.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think retrogrades really are. I think they're opportunities to level up our consciousness and bring things into a place where when that retrograde goes direct, right? Everything that we missed during that period of time, during that retrograde, we get to revisit and make course corrections. See?
Yeah.
In context to where we're navigating things with our own consciousness.
Yeah, there's a reflective, introspective
Exactly.
quality to retrograde.
Yeah.
I've noticed because right now we have Venus in retrograde in Leo. Natally, I have Venus in retrograde, not in Leo, in Scorpio, which is detriment. But I'm noticing that energy more so, even though it's not a transit per se for me, but it's still something I'm really noticing because of I have that energy within myself, the Venus retrograde energy. So I'm actually noticing it with a lot of women in my life that I care about are having problems around me and stuff like that, health problems. And like I'm noticing this with loved ones that are women, which is very Venusian kind of energy. And it's really fascinating just to see how that plays out, even though that's not a traditional transit, but it's still something that's kind of coming up for me in terms of this retrograde.
You were dealing with a square energy to Venus in Leo.
Yeah, it's squaring. Yeah.
You know, when it came into the gate, you know. So,
yeah, exactly.
So, you know, so even though, you know, you're not having an aspect with it now, a direct aspect with Venus, you know, retrograde Leo, you're still feeling the power of that through that square energy. So that, you know, so that does give you an opportunity to really look at, you know, how that energy is affecting your, you know, your transformation in context of the second and seventh gates, you know, because you came here to transform relationships, karmic relationships that have been probably on the docket for quite a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Meeting a lot of people from other lifetimes and stuff like that has been a big part of it too. Yeah. Time. Yeah. Clearing all that out. Yeah. Healing and rectifying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, Venus and Leo, it's a interesting energy because when it's, you know, going direct, it's like, look at me, you know, Venus is Leo, you know, the sun, it's all about, you know, that glamour and that, you know, kind of prima Madonna energy kind of thing. But then when it's in retrograde, it kind of puts things in the shadow a bit, doesn't it? It changes that energy. Yeah.
So you can really see it because, you know, look at me, I'm the cheerleader, the lioness, you know, but when it retrogrades, you know, it takes the sharpness off of that. I find that a lot of people who have Venus and Sun conjunct, which, you know, Sun is the ruling planet of Leo, right? So, or orb. So what are we dealing with there? You know, we're dealing with a combustible situation. Right? Because Venus isn't Mercury. So, you know, Venus likes to stand alone with its energy. And technically, it really doesn't like Mars hanging around either. What happens is that Venus energy gets gobbled up or combusted, right? With the sun energy. And so the sun then becomes it dominates that energy when it's in Leo. And so that sun energy can become very, it can take that Venus energy and bring it into a place of very full of vainness, you know, and actual, what's actually an empty part inside of you that's so wanting to be loved and recognized, you know. And so you go out of your way to do that, to get that done, right? But in fact, that recognition needs to come from your own soul, not from validation outside of yourself. The validation outside of yourself is when you actually embrace the part of you that is saying to itself, I love my soul. I love who I am. When you can embrace that aspect, which is really that Taurus energy, context to Venus, sitting there in Leo, that's when the fire gets lit inside, and you actually do become the sun itself in context to your Venus energy when you have that conjunct. So either it's going to take you over and combust you, and you're going to have this vain expression of your love and your relationships, right? Or you're going to actually look at it in context to what it truly is, and then let that sun shine out of your soul. That's kind of the lessons of Venus and Leo. Our existence becomes, very shallow. It could become very shallow with Venus and Leo. And to bring the richness back into our soul, we have to embrace that, that part of our soul that is truly actually loving the sun within ourselves, of who we are.
And that aspect's coming up soon. Hey, the conjunction. Yeah.
It is. Yep.
Coming up to Leo. Yes.
Yeah, and that's going to be, that's going to get ready to happen. What relationships are we still embracing that are driving the narrative to our emptiness, to our vain, existence that we're propping up to make us feel good? Or are those relationships in deep connection to the will force itself in context to what actual love is? And then wield it out of that relationship. It's really challenging position. The other thing I've noticed in charts is that the house placing becomes a real challenge, in context to what gate you're in. So that house sitting beside, actually, I believe, becomes the shadow aspect to the gate itself of what the energy you're actually trying to integrate into that gate through your templating. So, if you have, like I do, Taurus in 8th house, that's the 2-8 axis, that's an opposition you're dealing with your soul. So you're trying to integrate that shadow aspect into your soul spark and transmute it. And I believe a lot of the house placings are like that with us.
Yeah, it's intense. Yeah. Moon in the 8th. Yeah.
Yeah, so. Exactly.
That 8th energy, the 8th house. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of transformation there. Yeah. Yeah. Having to be, dead and reborn many, many times, basically. Yeah. Yeah. It's intense.
It is, So there's a lot of secrets in astrology that I don't believe we've even uncovered yet, honestly, that are going to come to the forefront in Pluto and Aquarius. There's going to be a revolution with astrology, I believe, on how things are actually done in context to those secrets or the information that's going to come forth, and how we'll have to deal with that information. I think there's a big reformation coming to the occult itself the next 20 years, actually.
Yeah, it's already began in many ways. Yeah. A lot of new information coming through, or old information being uncovered. People starting to remember aspects of ourselves. Yeah. And the mythos. I've just been getting into the Box saga the last few days.
Oh, nice.
Wow, that's trippy. Yeah, that's very fascinating, and some may say, oh, it's just, hearsay because it's one guy, that told this story, but there's so much in there etymologically that's just like mind-blowing, like to do with, Odin Ma, the whole concept of the word hell, which goes into the Nordic mythos as well, being this place of paradise and healing, and the whole inversions of the church and what they did there, making it into a place of, suffering and
that's the cube, man. In context, if you really want to look at it, that is the lockdown to the equation when we're dealing with the black cube, the Abrahamic construct, in context. It is the fear of your eternal soul burning forever in torment that they use against you to bring you into a place where you are fearful, so you make the choice to the cube worship out of that fear. I've seen it manipulated so many times. They actually use that as a manipulative tool for evangelism in the Christian church.
It's disgusting.
To get converts, talk about a spell cast. We know where that came from. It came from the pits of hell. itself. I mean, talking about the hell that they created, Dante's Inferno, all that shit. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Instead of the
know,
true hell, which is,
I just did a post on that black cube worship, man. It's everywhere. It's not just propagated and propped up within the religious aspects. It runs the whole gamut of symbolism
yeah,
itself.
very pervasive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole society. Yeah. Yeah. Even looking
Absolutely.
at different symbols and yeah. The whole lockdown equation, the inverted Saturn energy. Yeah. The whole system structured around that, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is where the energy goes in context to the actual matrix itself, to the 10th gate that we're dealing with here, which is actually what is running the reality field in context to that. It is the tesseract, it is the cube, it is the lockdown to consciousness being separated. And if you want to take it to the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, that's what's going on there. And then that 3, 6, 9 is triangulated in on that to create what that inversion, those inversions. See, because we've never got back to Ganunagat, the womb, actual, the zero, which to me is Ganunagat. Take it to the mythos. It is the womb that has been hijacked here.
Yeah. The unmanifest energy. Yeah. Distorted that. So what's coming through is all reversals. Yeah.
Right.
So I guess our responsibility now to re-implicate and restructure, flip those reversals and bring in, the true alignment again.
That's why you have to work with your Saturn, because you can't allow what's been propagated and propped up in the reality field as being how things are. That's not how things are. You're seeing things in the upside down.
Yeah.
If you look into the reality field, it's in the upside down.
Yeah. So much inversion. Yeah. And the Saturn in Pisces has probably clouded all of that even more, it's a lot of deception with that energy as well, with, Neptune, Pisces energy, can make things even more clouded. I feel more confusing for people around that 10th gate Saturn energy. Yeah.
Well, where's Neptune sitting? 27 degrees. What's it doing? It's squaring the galactic center.
Yeah.
Right now. So what's happening there? There's a potential till into 2026 for exponential growth because of that square, that challenge, that intensity of that square to the galactic center. See? So with Neptune being in retrograde now, right, till I think the end of December, our challenge is to, go internal, clear more things out, so that when that Piscean energy then comes back online, when Neptune goes direct, and it's still squaring that galactic center, we can then integrate those challenges that we've taken in the retrograde itself to transform. I mean, our gifts. This is about our gifts here. If you really want to get down to it.
Yeah.
Cultivating the gifts of your magical existence. I mean, I am one that believes that, before all this happened, that, we were immortal as human race. We didn't, we had high level regenerative abilities. Being able to, what we would call now supernatural, was commonplace. And then they wonder how all these structures got built on the planet. Well, we built them. Yeah, our ancestors built them. You start to realize that the actual lockdown. I always go back to that movie, Back to the Future, where they're dealing with a timeline shift. Marty McFly is trying to reconstruct his timeline because they went back and it got changed, right? And so he had to do it where? At the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, right? Under the sea, that's Neptune. It even has a picture of Neptune sitting with the fork in the picture itself. See?
Wow.
So when you're dealing with timeline shifts, what is it that you need to find in the midst of this retrograde that's going to anchor that original timeline within you? He was able to influence the timeline shift. What are we dealing with? We're dealing with the quantum realm. That is Neptune square the galactic center.
Yeah, well, look, Marvin, you gotta play. See, that's where they kiss for the first time on the dance floor, and if there's no music, they can't dance. If they can't dance, they can't kiss. If they can't kiss, they can't fall in love, and I'm history.
Hey, man, the dance is over, unless you know somebody else that can play the guitar. This is for all you lovers out there.
Earth angel, will you be mine? My darling dear, love you.
George, aren't you gonna kiss me?
I don't know.
I'm just a fool.
Scram, McFly. I'm cutting in.
Earth angel, the one I adore.
Hey, boy, you all right?
I can't play. Excuse me.
I'm sorry, boy. The lab is an awful mess. Attaboy. Obviously, the time continuum has been disrupted, creating this new temporal event sequence resulting in this alternate reality.
English, Doc.
Here. Let me illustrate. Imagine that this line represents time. Here's the present, 1985, the future, and the past. Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate 1985. Alternate to you, me, and Einstein, but reality for everyone else. Recognize this? It's the bag the sports book came in. I know, because the receipt was still inside. I found them in the time machine, along with this.
It's the top of Biff's cane. I mean, old Biff from the future.
Correct. It was in the time machine because Biff was in the time machine with the sports almanac.
Holy shit.
You see, while we were in the future, Biff got the sports book, stole the time machine, went back in time, and gave the book to himself at some point in the past.
Right, so we go back to the future, and we stop Biff from stealing the time machine.
We can't, because if we travel into the future from this point in time, it will be the future of this reality, in which Biff is corrupt and powerful and married to your mother and rich. This has happened to me. No, our only chance to repair the present is in the past, at the point where the timeline skewed into this tangent. In order to put the universe back as we remember it and get back to our reality.
And how he holds the trident, you know, and that
Yeah.
whole symbology, the trident being like Algiz, the rune Algiz, and
Yeah.
you know, Shiva with the Trishul. Yeah, that's a lot of symbology there as well. And yeah, like that protection that comes with that energy of Algiz that is really necessary with the Neptune energy, because Neptune can be confusing. So we really need to kind of remember who we are and protect our energy so we can anchor in that original timeline, basically. So yeah, there's so many like connections with the occult. You know, the more you look at it and you look at these symbols and the mythology,
Yes.
and
Right.
you can make all these different associations.
Right.
It's fascinating. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And Neptune can become the illusion, or it could become the cause point. See? And so you know, it is the shaman, right? It is the shaman. It is the energy that affects the unconscious, subconscious mind fields.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, so when we're dealing with Saturn in Pisces, you know, we're dealing with, you know, the dissolving of boundaries. Right? Because what will happen when Saturn moves into Aries? That's going to be the space where the Saturnian energy can turn into an asshole. You know, it can turn into a narcissist, right? So Saturn is finishing up its 30-year cycle through the gates this last 2.5 years. You know, so we're going to be starting a whole new cycle at the, you know, in 2026. We need to take advantage of this opportunity because Neptune wants to dissolve the boundaries of what it can't bring into a spiritual existence, a spiritual place. If it can't bring it into a spiritual place, it wants to dissolve the boundaries so that it can. Whereas Saturn's wanting to draw the boundaries to your spiritual existence so that you actually have a structure. But when you look at the ocean, it doesn't look like it has structure. When you look at it as a whole, it's just a body of water. Right? I mean, that's what it looks like when you're looking at the outside of the ocean. Yeah.
And that raw power, you know, it's very hard to control. Saturn wants to control things. And
right.
Yeah, that organic Neptune energy is just like uncontainable in a way. Yeah.
Right. Because where are the boundaries in the ocean? Where do you draw them?
Yeah. It's fascinating energy. I think around 2026 also is when Uranus moves out of Taurus as well. So
I think so.
We'll be looking at a lot of big shifts there. That's been a hard transit overall, I feel, as well for the collective, Uranus and Taurus. A lot of
difficult transit.
It's been a big one.
You know, I mean, it's been 84 years since it's been in Taurus. You know, so you look back at that period of time, you know, so what are we looking at? You know, the 1940s.
The war, World War II.
And of course, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with movies like Oppenheimer, which is talking about the nuclear bomb and, you know, all this, you know, World War II and what we were in the midst of during that time. You know, the cycle's coming up for review in context. And and we have to realize that things are very, I mean, you know, I'm not doom and gloom, you know me, but things are very fragile at the moment. And it's just like reel after reel and psyop after psyop. And, you know, it goes on and on and on and on, and conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory. And pretty soon the conspiracy theory becomes a conspiracy theory, becomes a conspiracy theory. So it's a spin off of this one, then a spin off of that one. And then that's a rabbit trail you don't want to go down. Because all that's going to do is drive the narrative to what? To the illusion itself, the Neptune energies.
and yeah, a bit of a threat with resources and things coming from the earth, Taurus being that fixed earth energy, and that Uranian energy is unpredictable change. So yeah, we could, food shortages or resources running out, or earthquakes and all this type of energy is
The volcano activity this year has been off the charts.
Exactly. Yeah. It's huge. Yeah.
And everything that's been going on has to do with water and ships and all this stuff lately.
Yeah.
People don't realize the type of influence that the solar spiral has on our consciousness. The problem is that it's there, and then because of the lockdown, it's used on the inversion to the aspect that we're actually trying to integrate to higher consciousness itself. See, that's how they use that Neptune energy against you.
Yeah.
A wizard knows this. So there's a lot going on with these transits for sure. We're not seeing all of it. We're seeing what we can see at the moment. And so we have to work with where we're at with our awareness. And so as we do that, that creates more awareness. And we continue to clear the field, clear the debris field, clear the asteroid field of our consciousness. That's been blown apart, basically. If you want to look at it, Tamaldeck and all that.
Yeah, what happened there? And that's probably when all these reversals and everything came in. Like even looking at the Box Saga, it talks about when the Earth was not tilted, and the north region of the Earth was actually paradise, and that was hell, or Odin Ma, and this whole region, it was constantly day, and it was always abundant with all the fruits of the earth and everything like this. And then some kind of major cataclysm went down, which kind of corresponds with that Meldeck cataclysm thing. And the Earth changed its tilt to the 23.4 degree axis, and we got the seasonal change, and literally hell froze over in that sense. And according to this, that's where the white people came from, was when that cataclysm happened. They were in the caves, they were in the ice, they were surviving in a very different environment to what was happening prior to the cataclysm. So hence, they lost melanin in the skin, and it's really, really fascinating.
And you can see that in the underground cities and the underground caverns that are all over the world, especially in the that are there, in context to how we had to survive.
Go underground.
And so you start to realize that the whole depiction of Eden and the fall of man, and how that was been basically like a dead horse, beating a dead horse over and over to the construct of sin itself, how that's been used as a psyop, taking it back to the Samaritan Draconian empires, and where all this is birthed out of the Middle East in context.
Surviving that harsh, like, desert land that people were living in.
Look what got burnt. Look what got burnt on the Earth. You can see it. The 33rd parallel, you can see it got burnt. And even talking about, the wormhole opened up in Saqqara, Egypt, in context to the actual being the cause point of the actual burning, or killing, or this dead space called the desert on the Earth. Nothing lives in the desert.
That created from that. Even, the Garden of Eden story, and then the mythos in the Norse with Idun and the golden apples of immortality. Right. You're talking about there was probably a time where we were immortal, and we did have this access to these golden apples of immortality, metaphorically. And then there's some kind of fall that's happened where we've lost that. And now our telomeres are shrinking, and we're aging, and we're going into death and decay, which is part of that lockdown equation. Once again, it's probably not our original state.
No, it's not. And again, in that movie Oppenheimer, one of the occult symbols that they were using was the apple itself. So they had the apple sitting on the table, like during one of the parts of the movie at the beginning, when they were talking about the actual nuclear aspect or splitting of the atom. So they actually had the apple on the table that whole time, sitting there. And then a guy picked it up out of his hand and took a bite out of it. See, the symbolism was there to that occult aspect. The apple, that is what? The actual torus field of the atom itself. It's the actual torus field of the cell itself, of the earth itself, of your auric field itself.
I wonder if there's any correlation with the word Taurus and toroidal, you know, as well.
Right.
Looking at Taurus representing the earth, and also that Venusian energy.
Right, toroidal field, right, exactly. You know?
In the Box Saga too, the word Tor was correlating with your closest friend that you'd share things with as well, which is really interesting.
Right.
Yeah, there's all this symbolism and etymology that's all kind of interwoven through this fabric of the more we look at these things. Oppenheimer too, didn't he say that he thought he'd become like Shiva, you know, the destroyer and the creator of the world?
He actually referenced that in the movie in context to what he had created and what he had been the cause point for, publicly revealed his disdain for it. He actually went before the president Truman and told him about his disdain for what he had done. And of course Truman looked at him and said, well, I'm the one that made the choice to drop it, asshole. But not understanding that you wouldn't have had anything to drop had I not been the cause point to bring it into the reality field. See?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, he definitely was, you know, he wished he had never done that. You know, and in the movie, I just, you know, I weep during that segment because there was a part there where in the movie where they were celebrating the drop of the bombs on Japan and the loss of life in Japan because of that bomb, those bombs being dropped. We were celebrating it as a country. And if you think about the massive fallout of people who actually weren't indirectly hit by the bomb, but indirect fallout, the suffering that they must have gone through.
Horrific. Yeah. So full on. Yeah.
You know, talk about a lack of compassion because of the program that's running. Holy shit. I was feeling that deeply in the movie. It was moving me, actually.
Wow.
It was very moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Check it out.
But yeah, so there's a lot of correlations with that, you know, but again, it's coming up for review. We're seeing it. Open your eyes, guys. You know, you've got to see from here, from your heart. You know, your heart is where you see from. And if your heart's closed and you haven't had the experience of your ignition with the higher force itself, you need to seek that out. You need to find that. That's the only thing that's going to transform you, is allowing and bringing yourself into the place where you're making that connection. That's becomes the most important thing in your life, is your communion with source, your communion with the higher force itself. Everything else then can flow from that space. And when it does, it's pulling the alignment back in. You know, bringing things back into alignment on the planet, anchoring in that energy. You know, so if you don't have that, that's not something that you've experienced in your life, that you've been able to work with. You need to find it. You know, because it's unlike any other thing that you could possibly think of. I mean, I've been through the church realm. I felt the bliss. I felt the bullshit that they run there, the Metatronic stuff, the healing stuff that they run in. I felt all that. This force has nothing to do with that. This is what real love is. It's a purging power. It's a purging force that propels you into an alchemical reaction, a nuclear reaction within yourself. Literally. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. You become a sun within yourself.
Igniting that soul spark within yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's to do with the high heart, isn't it? The thymus as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is also, connected to the nervous system, endocrine system.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of physical alchemy that's going on with this process, which is probably a good place for everyone to start, with that physical alchemy, the choices we make day to day with how we care for our body.
It totally is.
Because there's so much programming of self-destruction, like people becoming their own undoing, becoming their own worst enemy in terms of their health and how they care for their physical body. We're in a minefield with health. There's so much distortion about what health is. There's so much junk food and toxic stuff that we've got to kind of navigate around, in terms of, like you're saying, big pharma, but also, just going to a supermarket and seeing what's on the shelves, and 95% of that isn't actual food that is good for your body. So
this is what they're giving us. These are the choices that they're giving us. See?
Yeah. Well, lack of,
this is what they're making available to us. You have to be able to discern what's going on there.
Anything like that processed and full of chemicals and genetically engineered. And shit. Yeah.
We're trying to bring this reality into a space where, we can literally see the transformation taking place and not just talking about it.
Yeah, actually physically actualize it into our reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Via our actions, via our thoughts, via how we govern, the emotional body, all of these things.
Yes. Well, is there anything else that you want to address here? I think we've really covered some really
a lot. Yeah, definitely.
Great aspects here to what's going on right now.
What about Mars? We've got Mars is in Virgo, is that right?
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Yeah, which is more mercurial energy as well. Yeah, with the Virgo.
And you can definitely be, dealing with, I think with really, really big anger issues with Mars and Virgo, actually, because hopefully it's helping you to see this whole game where you've partaken of. I've partaken of this. This is what I've done. And hopefully it'll get you to make some choices, take some action to changing that, to making the choices to change that narrative now. And, you can weep over it and you can see it for what it is. But don't beat yourself up over it. Just make the change. The word repent actually means to return to the high place, or return to higher consciousness. Is all it means.
Yeah.
Repent, penta. What is a pentagram? What is a penta? Return to elemental consciousness. Repent.
Yeah.
See,
and whole, holy, whole, like
right, exactly.
Whole.
Be whole, be made whole. That being made whole means that you're returning to the higher. You've repentance. You've returned to higher consciousness, or you are paving the path of the process to coming into and returning to higher consciousness,
integrating all aspects of self,
right?
And fear, fear of the devil, which the devil, etymologically could be, the division, that fear to divide, and also Devi in the Sanskrit is actually a nature spirit. So once again, you've got a distortion there because they're calling things devils when Devi or Deva is actually this earth energy. So it's once again demonizing the earth, or the word daemon and the word demon, the daemon once again, like the familiar or the So
it's driving the narrative to the actual, like trying to tell you that that's evil.
Cut us off from that.
When actually the actual evil is what's being propagated in context to the construct of fear itself, which then drives the narrative to nerve induction. you know, and then your choices that are made out of chaos or stagnation. See? And so that's how that shit works.
Oh yeah.
So then it locks you into construct in context to what? The fear of hell, the fear of, you know, being left behind, the fear of an angry God not accepting you. You know, so I've got to take the sacrifice. I've got to take the needlecraft, right? Got to take the sacrifice, prove myself worthy of God's love. You know,
holy sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly. What a bunch of shit. You see how that just fucks with people's minds? They don't even know it.
Cuts them off from their true core self.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because everything outside of that becomes evil then. See? Everything outside of that box you don't touch. That's forbidden.
Heathen stuff, you know?
Right.
Pagan stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I saw a post about that with Christians, you know, saying, you know, if you study astrology or you do yoga or any of these heathen pagan practices, you know, you're conversing with the devil and, you know, you're being possessed by evil spirits and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
And
you may even see people who you thought were locked in to their path work that get pulled back into that shit because they actually haven't dealt with the Jehovah's seals within themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Go back to Jesus.
Yeah. Yep.
Zeus.
Yeah, exactly.
Where these archetypes actually come from.
Yeah.
Right. I encourage people to just look at all the mythologies, look at etymology, look at archetypes, you know, keep studying this stuff because there's so many layers to it. And that's where the true gnosis is, not just prescribing to one particular dogma, whether it's the New Age, you know, stuff or Christianity or any other religion. You've got to look at everything, the comparative religion, comparative mythology, and see these parallels and actually get back to the, you know, the core of things through this.
Exactly.
Yeah. So important now. Yeah. And that's where we're going to get that true knowledge of ourselves and who we are, because those archetypes are just extensions of that, and reminders, you know, of the different aspects of ourselves and how others and ourselves interact in this world. Yeah. Through those archetypal constructs. So,
absolutely. So well put. Very well put.
Really important.
Absolutely. So is there anything else that you want to get into?
I think we're good. Yeah. I think we've covered most things. Yeah, we've got 3 full moons this month. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting month.
Yeah. So a lot of amped up energy. Yeah. But other than that, I think we've covered most things. Yeah.
So, are you taking on readings and or mentorship yet?
I'll do readings. I've been doing a few readings for people recently, which has been good. I feel like I'm still a novice with astrology, but it's something I'm working on, and I'm definitely coming from that archetypal, mythological kind of angle when looking at astrology and looking at people's charts. So yeah, I'm definitely open if anyone wants to get a hold of me. That's definitely
go ahead and tell them how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, sure. You can find me, just message me directly on Facebook, Tala Linden, TALALINDEN. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me, just via Messenger. Cool. Yeah, but I'll get a website happening soon.
No worries. Yeah, no, good. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. You know, Tala's been through probably 2 or 3 lifetimes in this incarnation that she's in right now. You know, just with everything that's happened to her, she's got quite a story. You know, I definitely recommend you know, getting with her. She's highly intuitive. She can pinpoint things. She has the ability to see into the realms, to kind of look at overviews of what's going on and be able to kind of, like, you know, has a high level psychic abilities. So I would definitely hit her up with that. I can attest to that for sure.
I read tarot as well. So
right.
It's them as a tool, for those abilities to kind of reflect outwards. With the tarot.
Yes, but, fantastic. Yeah, and you can get a hold of me if you are looking for transit readings or any type of astrology work. I also do tarot and runes and counseling, and, you know, just help people in general. I have a few people that I'm mentoring. So, just you can get a hold of me at you can get on Facebook, Rodney Goodwin, or I have actual Facebook page, which is Hardcore Productions, or you can email me at hardcoreproductions9@gmail.com. I also have a website, hardcoreproductions.com. You can check that out, look at the services page, see what I offer. And then if you're interested, you can hit me up. All of us are working in context to bringing things into a higher space, a higher level of consciousness here on the planet. And anyone that I can help that's willing to reach out, I will help. Again, I have my own mentors as well that help me. So, it is part of the process that we go through to bring things into a space where we are actually going through the true alchemical biospiritual regenesis process. And that's what we're all here to do. So that's where you can get a hold of us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and going through some of these energies that are currently in our reality field through the solar spiral of creation itself. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Thanks, Rodney. Yeah, same here. It's been wonderful. Yeah. Have a wonderful evening. Cheers.
So, okay. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will definitely do it again.
Cheers.